Tonight we are discussing immigration and refugee and asylum issues as they relate to LGBTQ plus individuals. Before we begin, I want to thank our sponsors. Our sponsors include various organizations at Canisius College, including the library, who gave us access to this film. We also have the Departments of Sociology, Modern Languages, Literatures and Cultures, and Political Science, and International Relations, the Office of Mission and Identity, and the Office of Campus Ministry, as well as the Alana Student Center and other organizations, as well as the Vice President for Academic Affairs. In addition, we have funding from outside sources, and that includes Embrace Western New York, who's one of our donors for this evening's event and for other events during the semester. As a reminder, there will be two more events, one on November 9th about the impact of COVID on migration. And on November 12th, we'll have a panel on the Mexican perspective on migration. That event, however, will be in Spanish. So we have with us Cheyenne and Mari and Cheyenne's cat, who appeared in the film Unsettled. We have also with us Wilson Saavedra from Honduras. Did I get that right? Because I got it wrong the last time. Honduras, yes. Who has also settled here in the United States as an LGBTQ asylum seeker. And we also have TJ Rogers with us, a graduate of Canisius College, who has done a lot of work with this community and on immigration and asylum issues. And Maddie McEwen, who works with Justice for Migrant Families, who's also done work on these areas. So welcome all of you to our panel. Those of you who are viewing, please feel free to submit questions, and we will address these questions as the panel progresses. So I think what I'd like to do is start with Cheyenne, and you can introduce your cat to us too, who's starring in the video. It's a beautiful cat.
I'm so sorry, guys. Thanks.
You know, this is the Zoom reality that
That's Python. Hi, guys. I'm Cheyenne, and Maddie's just in a room, finished work, working from home. I am one of the subjects from the film Unsettled by Tom Shepard, the director. And yeah, I'm looking forward for this panel.
So Cheyenne, can you tell us how you got involved with Tom and involved with the film?
Oh, yes, absolutely. It was kind of all of the sudden. We just arrived to San Francisco, and we have a friend here whose name is Melanie Nathan. She's a human rights advocate for LGBTQ. And she told us about Tom Shepard having an idea of filming our story and all of that. And we met Tom. And really, I don't remember how it all started because it was just all of a sudden. I guess our heads were still somewhere else with the shock of being in a new country. But that's basically how we started. We met Shepard through our friend, Melanie Nathan.
And for those who have already seen the film and know your backstory, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about what life has been for you since the film.
Well, it's always up and downs, right? That's just life in general. We were living in the Bay Area, and after the film, a little bit later, we moved to Las Vegas. We were there for, I believe, 1.5 years, not too long. And now we are living in Salt Lake City, Utah.
And you are both working from home under the current.
Yes, that's the new normal now.
And what are you both doing?
I'm still in the tech industry, working for one of the tech industries here in Salt Lake City, and Mari is also working for tech industry that she just started this new job. So yes, we kind of in the same industry of what we were doing in the Bay Area.
Right. And how does it feel being in Utah as opposed to California as part of the LGBT community, but also as a person of color?
It's very different. I believe there is like this huge perception that Utah, right, it's just all races. And if you are Black, you come here, like this is the end of the world. Don't even think about moving here. But it's been pretty great. People here are super friendly. I believe even if they don't like you for being gay or Black, they won't show you that, if that makes sense. Like they don't care really. So everyone is dealing with their lives. And I feel like the LGBT community tends to be a little bit more united here. People are more willing to get together and know each other. And it could be that because the LGBT community here is still, I mean, it's not that easy to come out because of the religious way of living here, right? Mormons and all of that. So people are more willing to get to know each other, to get together. So they will embrace you more, right? And I feel like in California, we had a hard time, like get together with the LGBT community, because we actually suffered more discrimination and racism in the LGBT community in the Bay Area. And here it has been the contrary, even though it's Salt Lake City, Utah. That makes sense. So it's been great. So far, so good. I would say that. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that perspective. You are right. We have certain assumptions about the Bay Area versus Utah, and I'm glad to know that you've had a positive experience in Utah. We'll get back to Cheyenne and Mari, hopefully when Mari has a chance to join us. Wilson, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about your story. For our viewers, Wilson was not part of the film. Cheyenne and Mary were part of the film, but Wilson is now local to the greater Buffalo area, and can also share his story. So Wilson, if you'd be willing to share your story with us.
Yep. Well, first of all, I want to say my English is not 100% well, so I hope you guys understand my English.
Nobody's English is perfect.
All right. So, I mean, like everyone know, like I'm from Honduras, and I come here to America like in January 2018, and I mean, I was in detention for around 7 months, and then I've been here for around 3 years, almost 3 years. So, and the reason I left my country, and it's a little bit sad because, to be honest, when I left from, I really don't want it. But anyway, I mean, my family and also a lot of people from there, they don't accept like LGBTQ people, and it's kind of hard. So, I mean, I left from there and I get asylum last year in 2019. And anyway, I don't have family here. I just have friends and people who live here in America, and I all feel welcome and I feel happy and to be part of LGBTQ community. And also, I just want to say it was hard to come out uh, in my country. I mean, not here because I meet a lot of people who accept the LGBTQ people, but I still sometimes like um, kind of be careful to talk about myself, about my identity. So I can say I'm okay here, and I'm happy to be here, and I feel welcome. And yeah.
Wilson, when you were in detention, were you in detention in Batavia?
Yeah, I was in detention in Batavia. Yeah.
Do you feel comfortable talking about that experience in Batavia?
Uh, I don't want to say this. I mean, I was a little bad because there was a lot of depression there. Because I can't call my mom and talk with somebody else, so it was difficult be there for months. I free from there was like, I don't know. I feel like really, really depressed. I was just crying every single day. But I'm here.
And in Batavia, was the difficulty both because of your immigration status as well as being LGBTQ? I mean, I guess I'm trying to understand how LGBTQ people are treated in the detention center in Batavia.
Um, I don't think so. They know I'm gay or not because I don't know. I mean, I just talking about my identity with my lawyers and I know with the officers there. So
Just so that you have a little background here, Batavia is the federal detention center outside of Buffalo um, that houses, um, well, people with irregular immigration status, I guess. Most people in Buffalo don't know that we have a detention center here in Buffalo, in Greater Buffalo. So I think it's important to remind people of that. Maddie, did you work with Wilson then during his time in Batavia?
No, we didn't work together.
Okay, so Wilson, how did you connect with the community here while you were in detention?
I think my lawyer did anything and she find a place to live here, and also my social worker, she's I probably you guys know she's Anita. So she helped me a lot to find a place to live here.
Maddie, I wonder if you want to jump in here and tell us a little bit about what you do and the work that you do in terms of both immigration generally, but LGBT immigration more specifically. What inspired you, or who inspired you?
Yeah, that sounds great. So hi everyone, my name is Maddie. I am a volunteer with Justice for Migrant Families. We are a local organization that supports undocumented immigrants in the Western New York area, and particularly in the Buffalo Federal Detention Facility. So I've been working with immigrants in Western New York for the past 6 years. I grew up here in Buffalo. I went to school at UB, and during my time at UB, I volunteered with the local refugee community. I was also involved with our Amnesty International group, and during that time, the refugee and migrant crisis was really a major focus in the news media. So once I graduated, I wanted to continue staying involved with the immigrant community and join a local organization. So I started volunteering with Justice for Migrant Families, and I became involved in our visitation program. And before COVID, our visitation program was one of our largest programs. Due to COVID, visitation is currently suspended to prevent the spread of the virus. But each weekend we would take a group of volunteers out to the facility, some of them Richard's students, and visit with people who are detained in the facility, mainly acting as, a friendly face. Detention itself is a very isolating experience, and it's purposefully that way. So just being there for emotional support, but also trying to connect individuals there with resources in the community, whether that be legal, financial resources, like Wilson said, housing, things like that. And I guess the reason this work is really important to me is because as I started talking with people in detention and like having them share their stories, they would mention like the poor conditions within detention, like overcrowding, poor access or limited access to healthcare, things like that. I guess what really shocked me is like that was in direct relation to the fact that these prisons are a profit-making scheme. So for-profit prison companies have been lobbying our government for over 40 years and are trying to profit off of the criminalization of asylum seekers. And so that really kind of angered me, and to take advantage of people who are vulnerable. I think that can anger a lot of people. So that's why I've been involved with Justice for Migrant Families.
Thank you, Maddie. And TJ, I wonder if you could speak also to your work with these communities, and maybe what has inspired you, and if you want to give a plug to your alma mater,
Sure, absolutely. So my name's TJ, and my pronouns are he, him, his. And I just want to start by thanking you, Richard and team, and the sponsors and presenters for making this possible, because I think it's an incredibly important conversation to have. And so I'm a graduate of Canisius College, class of 2011. And upon graduation, I moved to Detroit, Michigan, and I did a program called Jesuit Volunteer Corps, which is a year-long volunteer program that I wound up doing for 2 years. And my placement was Freedom House Detroit. And so I volunteered full-time for 2 years, and then was hired on and spent almost a decade with the organization. And for those who don't know, Freedom House Detroit, not affiliated with the Freedom House Global Policy Think Tank in DC, separate organization, is a shelter that provides obviously shelter, housing, basic needs, but also a full scope of social services, including medical care, mental health care, education, ESL, financial literacy, entrepreneurial training, etc., and legal assistance, all on site under one roof. And so the only organization in the country that has that unique model. And so it was my time, a volunteer, I figure out how I can make this story short. An experience that I had on a service trip in New York City when I was at Canisius that, long story short, put me on this track to wanting to work and engage with folks who were from other countries. And so that's what took me here to Detroit, to Freedom House Detroit, and then being there, being on staff, being an out gay man on staff, and starting to recognize and build connections with folks who were fleeing their home country because of their sexual orientation or gender identity. I began to recognize similarities, but obviously some stark differences in our own unique journeys, but also what it means to be an American and what comes with that, right? The responsibility that I have as an American, that privilege, right? Not only being American, but being white, right? And recognizing the intersections between different identities, and how if I am to truly be invested in not only the mission of the organization, but the folks that we aim to help, I need to really root myself and ground myself in a sense of global solidarity and intersectionality, because, regardless of where folks come from, at our core, we're all human beings, right? And so really working for a collective liberation of folks, regardless of the oppressions that we may experience. And so all of that said, back to one of the other questions you asked in terms of inspiration, I would say it was the folks that I met at Freedom House, everybody who crossed our door, not only the volunteers and supporters, but the residents, and specifically those who were part of the LGBT community. There were a lot of heart-to-heart conversations that we had, again, because there was that identity we're able to connect with in a way that the majority of the house, the shelter we call our house, was not able to connect. And so we quickly became brothers and sisters, and they continue to serve as inspiration to me.
Thank you, TJ, for that. Wilson, and this is for both Wilson and Cheyenne, if there are questions that you don't feel comfortable answering, that's okay. You just need to tell me that, all right? I wonder, Wilson, how your relationship with your family or your home country has changed since you've been here.
I mean, I don't have a really, first of all, when I say with my family, so I don't have a really a relationship close with my siblings, just with my mom. So, I mean, I miss my country and my family, but anyway, I can't be there. So,
And have you found, for example, family of choice here in Hamburg, or a Hispanic community that you can relate with?
to be honest, no, just I think I have like two friends. They are Hines from El Salvador, so but I think that's the reason I practice my English because when I come in here, nobody here speaks Spanish, so it was hard for me. I use my phone, Google Translate to communicate with others. So, but right now, I just doing my bad English, but whatever.
Well, we need to work on getting you more connected to the greater community, Wilson.
Yeah.
Cheyenne, how about you? How is your relationship with your home country or your family changed since you've been here?
Well, with my country, that's very broad, so I couldn't really answer that. But with my family, I feel like it has gotten a lot better. We are kind of like reconnecting again. So, like baby steps, I'm giving them the space, and I believe they are also respecting my space. So, baby step. We are like rebuilding our relationship.
And have they seen the film?
No, but when I spoke to my dad, especially about it, he was actually curious to watch it. And I kind of asked him, okay, Dad, but do you understand what this is about, right? He was like, yeah, but you guys should bring the film here. And I was like, okay, I guess we are changing. So, yeah, babe steps.
Yeah, wow. Well, I mean, those are good signs, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And what about community? I know that you have moved from the Bay Area to Utah, but I'm wondering how community formation functions for you. How finding family of choice has been for you. How do you feel connected to your community?
I would say it's a 50-50. As I said here, I feel like it's kind of more easy to connect with people. And even before we moved to Salt Lake City, we kind of looked for ways to be in the community already here, like through Facebook groups and all of that. And, so far we have been very welcomed here. So we don't have like a definite family of choice here in Salt Lake City, but I believe it's like a matter of meeting more people, and building that relationship and trust.
Maddie, I wonder if you and TJ also, if you can talk about things that people involved in your organizations can do to help these transitions for people who have been successful through the process, like Cheyenne or Wilson.
Do you mean like as volunteers?
Well, as volunteers, or how can we make our country a more welcoming place for people, particularly who are, as TJ mentioned, not white and not straight? How do we create an environment for them to feel welcome and supported beyond
Yeah.
just, okay, here's some donation or something, you know?
Yeah, I think one way that, I think there's like different spaces. So, like in LGBTQ spaces, there could be like more room for people to be like more involved, like kind of like the intersectionality of like these different identities. So trying to be more open to like more getting involved in like pro-immigrant causes, pro people of color causes, things like that. I think, yeah, like bridging, yeah.
Yeah, and I would say to kind of build upon that, most importantly, we need to get educated, right? I think there's far too many folks in the United States, and again, I'm speaking as a white cisgender gay male, right? Many of us have no idea what happens outside our own communities, let alone outside our country. And so we need to understand the realities for folks in other countries and really learn from them in terms of what can I do to support you, right? Oftentimes we as Americans, particularly white Americans, think we know everything and have the answer to everything. But there are folks from different backgrounds, different races, whatever, who have the answers, but perhaps they're under-resourced, and so that plays to the funding aspect, right? But connect directly with folks who are on the ground in other countries to help support them in their endeavors, right? Support their efforts as opposed to make them follow you. I think we need to do our own anti-racist trainings, right? That's something that I've been trying to self-educate, particularly make time during COVID to learn more and deepen my understanding. Aside from donating and volunteering, another critical piece as well, I think, is engaging with elected officials from the local municipal level all the way up to the White House, right? Because ultimately, when it comes to our immigration policies, that is set in large part by folks that we elect to office, either directly or who they then appoint to certain positions, right? And so it's behoove us to make sure we understand who has the power to make those decisions, and we are engaged and hold them accountable to make sure that their choices are reflective of our values, right? Every year the White House, the president makes a presidential determination on the refugee admission program, right? And so since 45 has been in office, I just got numbers here real quick. When Obama left, the cap was at 85,000, and this year in 2020, it's at 18,000, right? That is just appalling. The United States, who should be a leader on the global stage, has decreased to 18,000 refugee admissions. That's only one component of immigration. So I think the political engagement is also a huge piece here as well.
Well, and that's coming very quickly to a head in about 3 weeks' time. So I wonder, this is perhaps revealing my own ignorance on this, but has the policy to treat LGBTQ people as a protected category evolved, or has it been sort of ignored? Or I guess I'm not a little unclear as to what the actual status is of that category.
Yeah, so if I can real quick, I can answer that for you or provide some context, maybe not an answer, but I can share what I know with you.
Yes,
for sure. So in 1965, the Immigration and Nationality Services, the INA, Immigration and Nationality Act, officially added sexual deviation as a grounds for refusing entry to individuals to the United States. And then in 1990, the Immigration Act removed sexual deviation because there was a case, a gay Cuban man who came up seeking protection, and he was first granted, the first known individual to be granted asylum on account of his sexual orientation. And then in 94, it became precedent. And so it's really only a short time that we've been admitting people under, one of the categories, membership within a particular social group on account of their sexual orientation and gender identity. It hasn't so much changed over the years, but one of the obvious or perhaps not obvious challenges is how does one prove that they're gay, particularly when they're coming from a country where oftentimes they're not allowed to live as freely as we are here, right? You don't often document things for fear of being found out, right? And so it's an added challenge to folks who are seeking asylum. My perspective as service provider.
Thank you for that context, TJ. Appreciate that. For Cheyenne and Wilson, I wonder, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this question. What else would you have appreciated from the community in support of your cases and in support of you upon release in Wilson's case?
I would say more unity, really, and not really sure how to put in words, because the time Mari and I were really struggling, we really didn't have like much support from the community. It was like really rare to have people from our community to come help out. And like a lot of times we suffered like a lot of racism and xenophobia because we have accents, and we are like from a complete different country. And it's incredible how USA has also this like terrible perception about Africa. So they would just like put all that Africa idea that they had on us in I don't know. Yeah, I would say like educate yourself more, maybe. Like people really need to educate themselves, not just about the LGBT issues, but about the asylum and refugee seekers issue as well. And one of the most important thing, know the difference between asylum seekers and refugee, because people don't really know the difference of these two subjects. Mari and I were asylum seekers, which means we came to this country with nothing, right? And we had to fight for things on our own, which is totally different from refugees. They come here and they have already some sort of support. They would have like some sort of a monthly allowance they will receive. They will have like organizations supporting them already. And so asylum seekers really are here on their own. And when we are coming to this country, we are not coming to steal your jobs or whatever people think. We are here because you guys have a good constitution, right? And we chose this land to, rebuild our lives and have a dignifying life. So I feel like most of it is really lack of education and information and knowledge. People should look more into like get more informed on this, like get more involved. In this way, you will be able to help more people, especially asylum seekers, because they really on their own, like literally.
Right. Thank you, Cheyenne, for that. And
Sure.
hopefully the small little part of helping educate our fellow citizens about this issue. What about you, Wilson? Are there things that you would have that you felt you would have liked more of, or something different, either while you were in detention or upon your release?
I mean, I agree with her with something she said, but also I think more unity among the LGBTQ community. I mean, because when I come in here, I don't know nothing about if there's a lot of people LGBTQ in Buffalo, to be honest. So I just meet some people like last year maybe, and yeah, it's kind of hard because you have to do things in your own. It's not like easy. So I think yes, that's it.
Thank you, Wilson. So we have a couple of questions from people watching the live stream, and this first question is for Cheyenne. They want to know if there's anywhere where they can hear more of your music.
Yes, my song, I just released a new song. It's called Been There, and that's on Spotify. You can also find it on Apple Store Music. And I'm really not sure how I can write it down so I can put on the chat. But if you look up on Spotify, King Cyborg, so all together, so King and then Cyborg all together. And the name of the song is Been There. So you will be able to listen to my song over there. And it will be the same name for the SoundCloud as well. So thanks for asking. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Cheyenne. And
Sure.
we'll try to put a link up on afterwards on social media. Another question is they would like to know more of an update on Cheyenne and Mari. That's yeah.
Updates in terms of life itself?
I guess whatever updates you want to share with us about the life, your life together since the film.
Yeah, no, life has been great, honestly, guys. I feel like we are in a state of our life where we are learning more to get to know ourselves individually and each other, and we meet in the middle. It's like Mari has her passions and I have mine, and we both have like this big passion in music. So that's also one of the ways we meet in the middle. So we literally just moved to the Salt Lake City. This is one of the big updates. It's been only 3 weeks, I believe. So pretty new here. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. I would prefer like more specific questions so that I'm able to respond to that. Yeah, but we have recently changed jobs. We are still rebuilding our relationship with our families back home. We miss our country very much. And we're still doing music, still writing. Yeah.
I mean, perhaps part of this is motivated by the fact that to go through this kind of process is quite challenging, right?
Absolutely.
And to do so with someone could both be good because you have someone that's going through it with you, but it also could be very stressful for the relationship. And maybe to maybe explore a little bit how your relationship has evolved because of the process and the difficulties.
Because of the process, well, we always had each other's back, right? That's one of the things we always had, like as a main thing in our relationship. We are each other's best friends, and of course, there were times where we were both like feeling this huge weight on our shoulders because of the things we were going through. So sometimes you do tend to shock with each other, right? That happens in any relationship. It's lesbian relationships are not different from straight relationship, guys. It's the same thing. So there are ups and downs. That nothing's perfect, but if you know how to communicate, sit down and learn how to listen to each other, which it's not always easy. Guilty. So, but if you look forward to listen to each other and know how to rise above, the issues that you're having, that there's really nothing that can bring you guys down. If you guys are together and willing, to go through the hard times together and build a life together and uplift each other, that's really what matters. Like the rest is really, things in life.
Good advice for everyone. Wilson, I unless you mentioned this and I just didn't hear you. What are you doing now in Hamburg in terms of work or life or? You're muted, honey.
Sorry. I just right now I just doing school online. I just take some classes to get my GED. And I looking for a job because I lost my job, so I'm all right.
Mhm. So both Cheyenne and Wilson have mentioned the lack of unity and perhaps awareness in the LGBT community in terms of race issues and immigration issues. And Maddie and TJ, I wonder if you have any thoughts on how we can combat that. They're certainly not the first people to mention this, and I know this is an issue in the community, and I'm somewhat at a loss myself of how to combat the well, frankly, the racism or the lack of global awareness within the LGBT community. I don't know, don't want to put you on the spot, but if you have any thoughts on how to improve that, I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts.
Were you going to say something, Maddie? I don't want to talk too much. I want to make sure I step back.
You can go for it.
Okay. I mean, so some things that come to mind for me, and I'll preface this by saying I spent 5, 6 years at Freedom House trying to build an I built an LGBT program for LGBT asylum seekers at the house, but a huge component of that was trying to engage the broader Metro Detroit LGBT community. And while some inroads were made, there was not as much progress in those 6 years as I would have liked to see. And so I don't have a definitive answer, but some things that I think were helpful and may be advantageous in other cities for other people would be, I think, organizations that are focused on Black, African-American, people of color, racism, what have you. They have to work to bring in LGBT issues into the fold, right? And so sensitivity, hiring folks, volunteering, supporting, whatever, bringing that struggle, if you will, into their own struggle because they're connected. And conversely, the same thing in the LGBT community, we need to make sure that we're bringing in, right? So there's a gap between these two demographics of people was my experience. And so getting those people to the same table to discuss what the challenges are and figure out where there's ways to overlap. And it doesn't often mean like you need to build a new program, but making sure you're intentional in terms of, as you're soliciting feedback for the extent to which your program is delivering its intended outcome. Are you asking everybody for their opinion? Are you sending out surveys to the whole community? Are you inviting people to events that you have outside of your normal outreach efforts, right? I think that's one critical piece. Another thing is there's an organization that I was a part of, LGBT Freedom and Asylum Network. We created a guide for working with LGBT asylum seekers, the first ever in the United States back in 2015 or 16, I forget. And so it's a great place to start for folks who are looking to engage and learn about the issues, who are either white American or even organizations that already work on immigration issues, but don't make an intentional effort to make sure that they're sensitive to LGBT folks, right? And so I don't know if I really answered your question, but I think it's often obvious things that we need to do that get overlooked. I think we tend to overcomplicate things. I think it should come down to intentionality.
Right. TJ, would you be willing to share some of those materials with us?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Maddie, what about you? What is your perspective on that here in Buffalo or the greater Buffalo area?
Yeah, I mean, I think in my own personal advocacy, I definitely feel like sometimes I get kind of tunnel vision and I'm only focusing on immigration issues. And so I think one of the best ways that we can kind of, cross over into kind of bringing issues together is just by having going to other organizations, having conversations, and like TJ mentioned, seeing how those things overlap, and like what can come of that. So I think, you know, in local like community organizing, just, yeah, that's all I can say.
Yeah, I just wanted, I'm so sorry to cut you, Richard. I just wanted to emphasize a little bit. So I like what Mari said, like going to other organizations, you know, but when you say going to other organizations, it's crucial that you actually have us there so that we can actually tell you guys what's missing and what we would like to see more from you guys or from the community.
No, thank you, Cheyenne. I think that's often a piece that's overlooked, which is hopefully we're trying to address those things. We have a question from Mexico, and the person asking the question is himself an LGBT immigrant from El Salvador, now residing in Mexico. This question is for Cheyenne and Wilson. Would you say that you feel or have ever felt or expect to feel at home where you're living now?
That is a good question. Feel at home. I really feel at home. Well, I do feel at home because I have my family here, which is Mari, so I feel at home. But like in a whole, no, I don't think we will ever feel like a home because we have our home country and we left our country the way we left. So there's always this part of you that, you know, wishes that you were there, but you were here because of the circumstances. But I feel like we do feel good here or comfortable, let's say that, in the sense that we are able to breathe and be ourselves, you know, be out and not be afraid of being who we are. But I like feel home. There's still a lot of gaps that have to be resolved, I would say, for us to be like to feel completely 100% at home. Mm-hmm. Which the racial thing and the xenophobia and now this election thing and this president that we have is just, there's just a lot involved. So yes and no, I would say yes and no. There's just this little details there.
Right. So an ongoing process.
It is a long process. This is like years of trauma. So it's a long process. Yes, absolutely.
What about you, Wilson? This feeling of home?
I think like 50-50 too, because, you know, I feel welcome here and I feel accepted for almost a lot of people from here. But at the same time, it's my country and I really want to be there. But so I can say 50-50.
Mm-hmm. So Wilson, you know, winter in Buffalo or greater Buffalo is challenging. How does that make you feel when you think about being in Buffalo as opposed to back home?
Can you repeat the question again?
Well, I guess, you know, this question of feeling at home or being at home, right? Here in Buffalo, winter is quite challenging. And I wonder if that exacerbates your feeling of what home is.
I mean, I think like you just try to ask if I feel like I mean, like, I don't know how to explain that.
Sí, que es más difícil enfrentar tu realidad con el invierno tan brutal que tenemos acá.
Not really. I mean, I don't like winter, to be honest. But the only thing I love is to see the snow in the morning. That's it. But I don't think it's like something I don't like it, but it's nice. I like how it looks. That's it.
It looks pretty, but that's about it, huh?
Yeah.
Cheyenne, going back to the film, when doing the film, aside from Tom, did you develop relationships with other subjects from the film?
Oh yes, absolutely. We know Junior since we actually met Junior in South Africa when we were seeking for asylum in South Africa. So Junior is our family, so we know Junior. And Subi, yes, we actually developed a good friendship and relationship. So absolutely.
And are you still in touch with them?
Yes, we're still in touch with them.
Do you feel comfortable giving us a bit of an update about the two of them?
No, I don't really feel like it's fair me speaking for them. I would like them to be here because I don't want to say something that they might not be comfortable with. So, yeah.
But they're okay.
Oh no, they're okay. They're okay. Yes.
Good. That's good to know. Maddie and TJ, Buffalo has a tendency to not think of itself as a border city, although perhaps under COVID and the border restrictions that might be changing. And Detroit, I'm assuming, has some similar characteristics. How, I'm not sure how to ask this question exactly, except that both Detroit and Buffalo are border cities, but it's a different kind of border. How do we help our communities understand that reality of our cities as border cities and what that actually means? I feel a few people think, oh, it's a problem that's in California or Arizona or Tucson or whatever, but not an issue of which we need to be aware, whether that's Detroit or Buffalo. And I wonder if you have any thoughts about the role of these two cities in the larger issue of immigration.
Yeah, so I think that's very true. I think Buffalo itself, we focus a lot on refugee resettlement, and the mayor is very proud to say, like, we resettle a lot of refugees here, but he is not equally able to stand up for the rights of our undocumented community or people who are seeking asylum. So I think, sorry, I lost my train of thought. But I think, that it starts with community education and really educating the community on, since we're within 100 miles of the US border, there are more ICE officers patrolling the streets. That means there's more there's more risk for people who do have undocumented status. And I think, we really saw, yeah, I'm gonna leave it there for now.
Well, I mean, just to jump in for just a second here, though, it seems to me that Buffalo's consciousness was sort of jarred into paying attention to this with the Buffalo 25 arrest, which was what, 3 years ago, 4?
Yeah, 3 years ago, or actually maybe 4.
Maybe it's 4 now. And that sort of galvanized certain aspects of the community. And I think it's important to note that there are a variety of grassroots activists and organizations here in Buffalo advocating for various intersectional engagement on these issues. But I sort of think that was sort of the moment, a defining moment here in Buffalo. And I hope that continues. I know that, Surge and Justice for Migrant Families and so forth are very active and involved, even despite the COVID restrictions that have limited a lot of things. I hope that we can maintain that level of activism going forward. TJ, do you want to speak to that as well?
Yeah, I guess I was going to mention the 100-mile radius thing, and I think that's a crucial piece and worth saying again for folks who are tuning in. Under U.S. law, 100 miles from the border of the country into the interior, immigration officials are free to patrol and essentially stop and ask anybody for identification documents. And so I think as Americans, that's a privilege that we take for granted. We don't recognize that, right? Here in Detroit, I live in Southwest in Mexican town. And so we have a very high number of undocumented folks. And so to understand the fear under which they live, particularly under this administration, is something that I will never be able to comprehend, and something we always need to make sure that folks keep at the forefront in terms of making sure we're centering humanity. And the only other thing that I'll just mention too is I'm fortunate, I didn't say earlier, I currently work for Detroit City Council member Raquel Castañeda Lopez, the first ever Latina elected to Detroit City Council. And she's towards the end of her second term. And one of the signature things that she did in her first term was create the Immigration Task Force. And so it's a task force that she chairs as official council member and comprised of folks who work in the immigration field throughout the greater Detroit area and some statewide organizations, as well as different political offices and government offices. And so I think that that's important too, because as I said earlier, we need to make sure that elected officials are also engaged in these issues beyond when it's convenient for political gain. Right. And so here in Detroit, we're fortunate that we really have an advocate, an office who is centering, right, the experiences of immigrants and making sure that language access and, all city services are translated, for example, is important, because not everybody speaks English when you live in a global city. And indeed, we're living in a more globalized world. So.
Ironic that you mentioned that about language, because at the same time that we live in a more globalized world and need more language education in this country is plummeting. And it's difficult for me to understand that. We have another question from the chat, and this is, I think, primarily directed for Wilson and Maddie. But what are things that people in Buffalo, particularly cisgendered and or straight people, can do in Buffalo to support people like Wilson and others that Justice for Migrant Family works with? Wilson, what do you need? Maddie, what can you offer?
Yeah, so I don't know if Wilson, I don't know if you wanted to start or I can start.
I'm still thinking about it. I don't know the answers.
Okay.
Well, maybe Maddie, if you have some thoughts.
Yeah, so I think, so one thing, I think everyone, has different strengths that they can bring to the table. So I think plugging into local community organizations is a great way to get involved. We did with Justice for Migrant Families, right now we did have a committee that focused on LGBTQ and LGBTQ folks who are in immigration proceedings. That is a bit on a hiatus right now, but maybe we could get that going again. But I think, yeah, plugging into the local community and yeah, I think that.
And Maddie, maybe you can give us a list of organizations that we can post to social media for people interested in volunteering. I think volunteering can take many forms, and I think sometimes people think they don't have a skill set that could be useful, but I think everybody could be valuable in contributing to the betterment of our society. So if you want to provide that at some point, then we can post that too. We have another question, again from Mexico. Besides religious and political beliefs, what are some types of social behaviors that get in the way of inclusion of people like Wilson and Cheyenne?
Can you repeat the question? Other than religious and what?
And political beliefs, what are some types of social behaviors that get in the way, or social expectations that get in the way of inclusion within the community?
Oh goodness, I think race is a underlying component, right? As has been mentioned. I think the patriarchy, right? Heteronormative behaviors in terms of, for those who aren't familiar, what these stereotypical behaviors and actions are for folks who are a man or woman, male or female, right? First two that come to mind, yeah, and I think class as well is another. I think those are more identifying characteristics. I don't know if that really gets to the question, but those are kind of the first things that came to mind for me. Because, Audre Lorde says there's no such thing as a single issue struggle because we don't live single issue lives. And I think that's so appropriate because, we can't separate our race, gender, sexual orientation, et cetera, from who we are. We can't just check it at the door whenever we're about to have a conversation or enter a space, right? We enter as our whole authentic selves, or we should. And so, yeah.
That's interesting that what you said, TJ, and the quote of Audre Lorde, because I feel that we're increasingly fragmented in our identities and what we are allowed to give and devote time to, that I think it's a challenge for people to see intersectional identities. And we all have them, but I think that we've become so reduced to a single identity, or maybe two, but they don't intersect, that it makes organizing and providing support challenging for sure. And now we have Mari joining us.
So hello everyone, say it again. Hi, it seems like you couldn't hear me. I just got off work, so hello everyone.
Well, thank you, Mari, for joining us. Cheyenne has answered a lot of questions for us, but I'd like to give you an opportunity too to talk about your life since the film and how things have continued to develop for you since the film.
Yeah, so I mean, even though we stopped filming 2 years ago, and we got our asylum about 2 years ago, we still in that, in that making our lives happen mode, where we still have to hustle, being in a new country. Obviously, we feel a lot safer now, and we have a peace of mind that we don't have to go back. So pretty much right now we are focusing on, getting settled and, just make our plans come true, pretty much.
I was going to ask you too, have you seen the whole film?
If I have seen the whole film? Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay. We've seen it so many
Several times.
Yeah.
Well, because some people, participate in films and then never watch the actual film. So I wasn't sure if you had actually seen the whole film.
Yeah, we did. And actually, seeing ourselves on the screen, I mean, the whole documentary is about the journey that we went through, right? Ever since we arrived until the time we got our asylum. So seeing ourselves in the film was actually a realization that we actually achieved a lot just by having that experience of going through what we went through. So that, at some point we looked at each other like, no, this is definitely something that helped us grow, and being able to look back actually, gives ourselves more kind of a, more self-value, I would say. Yeah. I would say like that, and also strength to keep on going forward. So
you don't find having watched it to be a painful experience? It's more of an uplifting experience?
That's a great question. In the beginning, it was very painful to see. But, the more you watch it, you come to a realization that it's not for everyone to go through a pain that we went through, to go through a struggle that we went through. So I just think that, it builds you emotionally, it makes you an emotionally stronger person. So at some point it just, that's the way we were seeing the film is, we saw that as an inspiration more inspiration than it was a pain. So we were able to kind of convert that feeling into, something that could inspire us to keep on going further.
Do you feel, in a sense, like role models or examples for others struggling with issues in their
Wow.
countries?
Role model, this is like a big word because there are people, a lot of people tell us that we are role models for them, but you also have this weight. You don't have this weight on your shoulder that, this huge responsibility. Okay, I'm a role model for all these people. What if I do something wrong? But yes, this is something we hear a lot. You guys serve as an inspiration and a role model. So I guess it's a good thing.
Yeah, I guess, that's the thing. That's one of the things that we want to transmit is that, life's going to be hard. Independently of who you are, it will be hard, especially if you are LGBT coming from Africa to the United States. But you can never quit on what you're doing, because if you give up, nothing happens, right? So you have to keep on going further. And we had people who told us that they are still doing things in their life because of watching the film. So that's huge for us, definitely.
No, it's wonderful, and thank you so much for sharing your story with us and with everyone else. TJ, I believe, has a question from within the panel to other members of the panel.
Yeah, so Cheyenne and Mari, wonderful to meet you. Proud and honored to share space with you. But my question, if you feel like talking about it, no pressure. I know somebody who's from Angola who is a lesbian and sought asylum here as well. And I know in January 2019, right, Angola decriminalized same-sex activity. And so I'm just curious, right, kind of what your thoughts and perspective on that is. I, of course, have my own, because we all know it starts high level with the law, but how that kind of trickles down is a whole nother story. And so if you have anything you want to share on that, or thoughts to other folks and myself too.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. Like we had that law passed, okay, but that doesn't mean that the society have changed the way they think about LGBTQ. That's a totally different thing. Angola is a very religious place. So just the fact that this law was passed, that is like a huge step forward to the future to change things. But people need to keep that in mind, that there's still people fighting, there's still people getting killed, and these stories are still being hidden under the carpet. That's just how the country works. So there's still a lot of work to be done. If we could, we would go back to our country like that. We would pack our things and go. But there's just a lot to be done still. People are still in danger. Just because this law was passed, it doesn't mean that people will change their mind from one day to another. Yeah,
it's hard to change society's mindset so fast in regards to something that they don't want to accept. So it's good that we have this law, and this is definitely kind of a hope for the future, that one day we might go back to our country and feel safe. But society is the one that's driving the country. Country is made by the people. And if the society doesn't understand and accept you, you're putting yourself in a huge danger. So even though there's law, the danger is still there. So that's a downside to it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sort of related to that, Wilson, I wonder if you think there might be any progress in your home country towards improving attitudes towards LGBT.
I don't think so, because Honduras is, it's a country like they are very religious too, so it's not easy, and I don't think so they change like easy. Maybe at a time, but probably that take a lot of time.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and we know all too well that a law does not make policy and vice versa. And I think that we make that assumption and, oh, it's all good and it's all great. And there's so much work still to do. Speaking of the work still to do, this is a question perhaps for all five of you. How do you keep sane or inspired or find the motivation to keep doing the good work to make us a better place? Especially maybe now with COVID and things are even more challenging. What keeps you centered, or what keeps you energized to keep doing the work? I know, like in Maddie's case, she's a volunteer, for example. What keeps you going in this work to educate and make the world a better place?
I cannot stress this enough. Work on yourself first. That's the key. Because if you are still, let's say, lost, right, and broken, how can you bring the good energy to the world and try to help out others? You have to work on yourself first. And it is a process. And sometimes you will need someone else to also help you and motivate you to work on yourself. This is kind of what we do with each other. We uplift each other. Sometimes one of us, just don't want to do anything. And I believe this happens with everyone. There are days you don't even want to leave your bed. You just like in that low vibration. So you do need to work on yourself first, so that then you can spread that good energy to the world and help other people. Yeah, and continue just doing things that you love, which with us is music, it's art, it's being surrounded by people who love us and we love them back. I personally love being surrounded by my plants, so that's like one of my therapies here. So yes, but definitely just work on yourself first.
Yeah. It's very important to have that time to heal, and healing takes some time. So up until now is, we felt like we were running. We were still in that, mood of running. We were tense in life. We didn't know what was going to happen to us. Well, when we got to asylum, we started realizing that, okay, well, now we're safe. Now it's time for us to work on ourselves, work on healing from our past traumas, right? And, now that we're healing, actually becoming better versions of ourselves, that's going to allow us to, actually focus and go get, and make our dreams come true, make our goals come true. And so I'm just adding on to what Shan was saying. It's a part of healing. It's a healing process as of right now for us.
Thank you. Anybody else want to chime in about how you take care of yourself to keep going forward and keep doing good things?
Yeah, I can go next. If no one else wanted to go.
Go ahead, Maddie.
Okay, so I think burnout is definitely very easy in this field. And I always tell myself, like, I want to be doing this work for my whole life, and it is definitely supposed to be a marathon. You're not sprinting ahead. So I've been getting better at like telling myself it's okay to take a break and get back to it. And I think what really energizes me is staying connected with the local community, hearing people's stories, and also like surrounding yourself with people who are also doing the work. You kind of like feed off of that inspiration. And yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you. DJ or Wilson, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'll go. Go ahead, Wilson.
So I believe it's a process, and I think it's like educating some others and to become open mind. That's all I have it. So
Yeah, I think everything that's been said, I was kind of had three things in mind. One, self-care, which Cheyenne talked about. What I call it, kind of find your tribe. And so being involved in the community, your chosen family, your family, whoever, make sure you're in touch with them, especially during COVID, where it's particularly easy to just want to stay in bed, right? And the other thing is learn, right? And actually, I just started reading an Angela Davis book, Freedom is a Constant Struggle. And I was reading it before this started, and there's a part in here where she says, I'm going to read it just real quick. Sometimes we have to do work even though we don't yet see a glimmer on the horizon that it's actually going to be possible. And so I think it's just having a belief in something, even though you might not see it or be able to, relish in the fruits of the labor, but just believing that it's possible, and doing the things it takes to sustain you in that work, which is the self-care and finding your tribe for me.
Thank you, TJ. I think that's a beautiful quote to end this conversation on. I think that it can be very difficult. So thank you for those inspiring words. I want to thank all of you. I want to give you a chance to say any last things. If you have anything else you'd like to say before we close this panel, so feel free. Cheyenne, Mari, Wilson, Maddie.
I'm feeling sad because I came in late. I wasn't working still, but that was good.
Well, I'm very glad you were still able to join us, Mari. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And I should also mention that Mari, Cheyenne, and TJ were originally going to be here back in March for our spring version of the Borders and Migrations Initiative. And literally the week before they were all supposed to fly in, COVID shut everything down. So I'm very glad that we've been able to at least do this virtually. I hope you get to use your plane tickets for something fun and exciting when we can travel again. And even though we could not be together in person, I'm grateful that we have the technology to be able to be together virtually. And I hope that someday in the not too distant future, our paths can cross in real life as well. So I want to thank you, Maddie, for joining us and for representing Justice for Migrant Families on this panel. And TJ, thank you also for joining us from Detroit by way of Canisius. Right? Wilson, thank you for joining us. Wilson was a somewhat last minute addition to this panel, but thank you for your perspective as well. And we need to work on getting Wilson plugged into his community a little more. So that's going to be one of my agendas. And Cheyenne and Mari and Python, was that your cat's name?
Yes, Python.
Python,
yes.
Yeah, she's still being naughty here.
Say hi.
That cat is absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you.
And very friendly and very much a personality on Zoom. So I thank the three of you also for joining us. It's been enlightening for me. And if you have links to songs or web pages or volunteer opportunities, we will put those in the chat that is connected to the video. I will also share with you the video so you can then distribute links to the video for others to enjoy. And I think with that, unless anybody else has anything else to add, I will thank you and wish you a lovely rest of this week. And please stay warm. I don't know how it is where you are, but where I am is getting far too cold for my comfort. I'm not one made for this kind of winter weather, but anyway.
Thank you, everybody. Stay well, take care, and I hope that we're able to cross paths sometime in the future and we stay in touch for sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us.
Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you guys.